There's no one on this planet who doesn't know what it's like to hurt, what it's like to feel, what it's like to cry, what it's like to think you are absolutely broken. Everyone knows those kind of thoughts.
Hey, how are you?
Oh, you found it. You didn't get too lost.
Yeah.
They just did this like big telethon here.
Was it hard for you to integrate being so authentic and vulnerable in your books with like Clark Kent life? You know, you're Superman, right? You know, I know you from rock and roll days.
Yeah.
I'm gonna know you from now as well, which is also rock and roll. But you know, was it hard to like be playing the clubs at night?
Yeah.
And then your daytime
Yeah,
life.
so I have like a 9-to-5 corporate job at an engineering company, you know, and I manage a group of people, and that group of people interacts with hundreds of people inside a huge company, and this is very professional, and you don't talk about things like mental health and especially suicide, right? That doesn't come up, and especially 10 years ago.
I don't really know when it was that I started thinking about mental health or even making it a topic in my own mind or in my life, because as far back as I can remember, I've experienced things that I knew at some level weren't right. I think I was probably about 6 or 7 years old when I started to get molested by a man in our neighborhood. And that to me was sort of, if there's any like tipping point of where I knew things around me weren't right, if there ever was a point where that became like a significant issue and a significant challenge to me, it was when I started to get sexually abused. This was a mentally handicapped man in our neighborhood who would take me beneath a crawl space of our house, where I would spend hours like literally in the dirt in this small space while I could hear my family above me moving around and talking and their footsteps and everything. So that was significant to me. That significantly damaged mental health and my wellness and my outlook and perspective of the world. But there was always, even in that, there was always this place in me that said, this is not right. I know it's not right. And I know I don't want to feel this way. And I used to write to myself when I was a kid. I used to write these notes to myself. This is how it feels, literally. I would write these notes to myself. You have to remember how this feels. At 8 years old, 9 years old, 10 years old, I would write, never forget how this feels. Because someday I'm going to be a dad. Someday I'm going to be able to influence someone else. And I want to make sure I'm doing that in the right way. And I'm doing that the best I can. It wasn't until I was about 15 years old where obsessive compulsive disorder had completely taken me over. And I was hospitalized for the first time at 15 years old for my obsessive compulsive disorder and thoughts of suicide, because I wanted it to end so badly. I wanted to make myself well so badly, or just get out of the situation altogether. For someone who doesn't have obsessive compulsive disorder, anything they do, any action they take has a result. So you reach for a doorknob, you walk through the door, and you're on the other side. You reached for it, you turned it, you have an action and you have a result. For me, with obsessive compulsive disorder, every action I did had a consequence. If I reached for the doorknob, I put my right hand forward. My right hand is a dominant hand. Domination is bad. So if I were to grab the doorknob, then there's a dominant figure on the other side, and if I were to cross that threshold, then something horrible is going to happen to me. So I can't touch the door. I have to go with my left hand. But if I walk backwards, now I'm reversing things. I'm taking away because I'm walking backwards to switch my position. And I pull my hand back, and only 4 fingers touched my palm when I pulled my hand back. And that 4 is not right because I actually have 5 fingers. So I have to reverse my hand in the way I pulled it back. And all this is happening at 1,000 miles an hour. And every single thing I did had a negative, fearful consequence with it. When I was 15 years old, I was admitted to a hospital in New Hampshire that determined the rituals and behaviors associated with OCD took up 95% of my waking hours. 95% of what I did was based in fear and consequence, and I had no control over it whatsoever. I couldn't do anything except write. When I was writing, when I was expressing my thoughts, not writing schoolwork, not writing a story, not writing problems, when I was expressing myself through writing, it was completely off limits to my OCD. In those moments, I was free. And I would sit and write lyrics and songs because music to me at that time, especially music, was absolutely everything. And I would listen to these bands and these words, and I would just analyze what they're saying and how they're saying it and be like, man, they know exactly how I feel, and I can't say it, but they can say it for me. And I wanted to do that for other people. I wanted to be that person. I met a friend who was almost immediately became my best friend, and we started writing songs together. He was a natural at guitar, and I seemed to be a natural at writing words and expressing them through my voice. I was definitely not a singer or a good singer, but I could sing. I could get my way through it, but really it was about the expression for me, about screaming and yelling and singing what I felt. What was so critical about being a teenager, especially, and dreaming about one day being a musician and being on stage and singing these songs and expressing myself in the way that I wanted to, was that I was dreaming. I was really dreaming. For the first time in my life, I was learning to visualize my future instead of remember my past, which is so incredibly powerful, so powerful. I was learning to see myself in a better place.
Peace out, Cool Suit Crown from LA.
You know, I have the moments before my attempt leading up to it. I was on disability, Social Security disability. I was collecting $400 a month, and I was on food stamps, and I had absolutely nothing to my name. I had no job, no family, no friends at the time, nothing. That would be easy for me to say that was a very low point because of those things, but the reality is when it comes down to how we feel and how we think and how we experience life, what is around us and what we have for material and possessions and what we're surrounded by means absolutely nothing. When you're in that moment of thinking whether or not you actually want to live, how much money you have to your name becomes completely irrelevant. If I were to boil it down to one little sentence or one little significant change that happened, it was when I stopped feeling like I wanted to die. And I started realizing that I was willing to die. The reason I think anyone attempts suicide in its most simple form is because we want something to change and feel incapable of changing it. I got to a place where I wanted change so badly I was willing to die for it. When I attempted suicide, I wanted everything around me to be different. My whole life had to be different. I didn't want to be renting a room to sleep in. I didn't want to be collecting $400 a month on disability. And when I changed my mindset over and said, no, I'm going to do this because I have absolutely nothing left to lose. I have nothing to be afraid of whatsoever, at all. Nothing to be afraid of. If I were to have any advice for anybody who's in a suicidal state of mind, I can promise you, it doesn't get worse than that. It doesn't. There's nothing left. That is the bottom of human experience. It might feel worse. It might feel like it gets bad because you're staying there a long time, or you're making an effort to get out and you're not getting out, and you're aiming for those changes and you're not getting those changes, but it's not getting worse. You just feel like it is. Anything you do to improve yourself is either going to help you improve or it's going to leave you in the same spot, but it's not going to make it worse. From there, we have absolute pure heart, pure passion, pure determination to make significant changes in our lives rather than ending our life. That is an opportunity that you can't give to anyone else. And I think anyone who's experienced thoughts of suicide, man, we are soldiers in the human experience. We're explorers in everything that makes us human beings. And if we can go to the bottom like that and figure out why we're there and how we're getting ourselves out of it and come back with that information for other people to help them not get down that low, and if they do, how to find their own way out, man, that makes us invaluable. I can't imagine getting to a place again where I sincerely consider ending my life when I know that I have that level of determination, and if I were to focus it right, I could help change the world. When I gave up music, it devastated me. I collapsed making that decision that I wasn't going to pursue music anymore because it was so important to my life, everything that it had given me. For so many years, I saw myself as a musician making a living off performing music and writing and expressing myself for people. When that didn't happen, it leveled me. I mean, it hurt. The reality is, what the hell do I know about what I really want? How can I tell you exactly what's going to make me feel fulfilled? I don't know what the world has in store for me. I don't know what tomorrow will bring. I don't know what experience I might have that will make me feel real fulfillment. So the mistake I made is that I thought music was going to be the thing that brought me there. And instead of focusing on music, I would have rather I had focused on the feeling. What did I want to experience in life that would make me feel that level of fulfillment? I first started writing because I had to, because I wanted to express myself, because it was freedom. And then I aimed towards music, and I got comfortable with being on stage, and I got comfortable with performing in front of people. And that didn't work, so I got really comfortable in a professional career, and I learned to articulate myself and give proper presentations and gain confidence in knowing that my thoughts mattered and my ideas mattered. And then all of a sudden I'm writing a book, and that book turns into speaking. And today I find myself on stage, still with a microphone. And I'm really living a fulfillment of what I actually wanted from the beginning, which was to connect with people. And I have that. The suicide prevention community has put a lot of effort into promoting hope. Literally the word hope, right? I mean, it's in everything we do, and it should be. It's in titles of our conferences, it's on our shirts, it's in banners, it's on stickers, and we push it on people. And as someone who sits on the other side of that sometimes, I look at it and I'm like, yeah, you're telling me to hope, but you're not teaching me how. At least not enough. I don't know what it means to feel something. You can't tell somebody to just feel something. You should love that. That should matter to you. Okay? I'm in the darkest part of my life. I can't see beyond my own 6 inches of depression and darkness. How am I going to feel something when I feel absolutely nothing? So I think as a suicide prevention community, it's very important that we keep that hope and we keep promoting that, and that continues to be our campaign. But we also start working in how do we actually teach hope? Not just sharing stories and exemplifying it and hoping that people adopt it and embrace it and do something with it, but literally talk about it. What are the steps we take to experience hope, to feel hope within ourselves in our darkest moments? I was in elementary school, somewhere between 3rd and 5th grade, because I remember the part of the schoolyard we were allowed to play in. And I would keep myself away from the other kids because I got bullied. I got bullied brutally because this guy who was molesting me had also tried it with a bunch of other kids in the neighborhood who he wasn't successful at it, but they knew it was happening to me. So the kids in the neighborhood who also went to my school knew that this was happening to me, despite the fact that none of the adults did, or teachers or my family or anything, and they used that against me to bully me. So I was bullied really bad. I would go to school and just hope and pray and think the whole way through my day, please don't let anybody bring it up. Please don't let them single me out today. Don't let them see me. Don't let them think about me. And I would do everything to stay quiet and by myself, to not have any attention put on me. So in these early years, I remember going out in the schoolyard and finding this nook in our school. There was a big brick building, and there was this probably like 12 foot by 12 foot section of the building that was just sort of an inlet. And I would sit on the ground and I would lean my back against the wall. In frustration, I would just hide through recess away from all the other kids. I remember digging my heels into the ground and just pushing back on this wall in frustration, sometimes crying, like I just wanted to like stretch my muscles and make fists, and I would just lean against this wall and push. And at some point, and I don't remember when, it wasn't like a moment, it wasn't an epiphany, but I remember at some point along the way through those years of doing it, I started to notice that if I look up and I look at the ridge line of the school, I can see the clouds moving against the contrast of the wall not moving. And if I let my eyes adjust and I let my mind think of it a little differently, I would start to see the clouds stay still and the wall actually moving. And I remember going out to recess. I remember looking forward to going out to recess so I could go to that spot, be by myself, and I would push on the wall instead of leaning my back against it in frustration. I would push on this wall with this imagination as I looked up, and it was like the clouds are staying still and I'm moving this wall. I'm the one pushing it, and I would make myself see it that way. That was really the first time I remember learning what it meant to hope. When we talk about suicide and depression and everything, that lack of control is so destructive. So that was one of the first times I remember. I never imagined myself to be a family man. I never even imagined myself to be 45 years old. I thought 27 was my limit. I don't know what that is and why it stays with me, but ever since I was a little kid, 27 was that number, and I don't know what it meant or why, but I never saw myself beyond 27 years old. So here I am at 45, and I'm married with 2 little girls, 9 and 11 years old, and God, I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful. It's everything in the world to me right now. The support is unbelievable. I mean, the way they feel about what I do and how I contribute and the way they support it is just unbelievably, like, it's nuts to me how much they care about me. And I mean, if you look around my house, there's these little plaques that my wife will buy and replace every once in a while that just says, "You are loved." You know, all of a sudden she'll notice that I'm kind of overwhelmed and I might be going in a tough state, and then all of a sudden there's this plaque on the wall that wasn't there yesterday, and it just says, "You are loved." And that's my family. way I choose to see it is compassion. I learned empathy. I learned what it's like. I know how bad it hurts. The way I write about it in the book is that compassion is to see the hurt in the eyes of another, no matter how badly we are hurt ourselves. If I had to go through that level of experience to give me the level of compassion and empathy that I feel for other people, then that experience is no longer destructive. It's worth it to me. I learned, I gained, I made it mine. I own it.